The Checkpoint is presented by GM Pharma, the first international multinational pharmaceutical company in Georgia. GM Pharma, to serve those who need it most.
As far as Georgia is streaming to sign a free trade agreement with the United States, it's the right time to listen to Matt Kennedy, the founder of Coverage. This company is working on investment projects not only in the United States but also worldwide. He is also a member of the Georgian-American Economic Cooperation Fund. Giorgi Isakadze sat down for an interview with this investor. Take a look.
Matt, thank you so much for your time. Such quick response. I appreciate all the contacts between us already. They work just fantastic, and you've been so much responsive. Thank you for your time.
It's great to be here. Appreciate it. Appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you so much. Matt, brief us about yourself, about your current occupation. We're much aware, maybe personally myself, while in the preparation with interview with you, about Converge itself, about your team, but what you guys doing, what's your occupation so far?
Yeah, great. So, after I left working for the federal government here in the United States, I founded Converge. Converge is a investment and development company focused on infrastructure and other sort of asset-heavy operating businesses. And so we work both in the United States and globally. We have a particular interest, potentially in the Caucasus area and exploring opportunities here.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so can we consider that, or can we evaluate sort of investment portfolio coming from Converge, or it just priorities or things like that?
Yeah, so we have existing investments in sort of infrastructure, as I mentioned, some utilities, water, wastewater, real estate, particularly housing, and some renewable energy assets as well. As we sort of look ahead, I think we're very much focused on industries that are going to benefit from sort of the larger transition to more of a circular economy and an economy where there's a price to carbon. So we're focused on waste to value opportunities, renewable fuels, things like that I think that you're going to see over the next 5-10 years, significant growth in those. So Converge is a little different than some other funds where we're really focused on long-term asset ownership and holdings. So, really look for opportunities that have some significant duration to them and not afraid to hold assets for a long period of time.
Yeah, that definitely within the plans and geography of this portfolio coming from Converge, Georgia is covered. Am I right?
Yeah, so we're looking to get into. We don't have anything yet, but I think would love to get some. So we've get something in the area and in Georgia. So we're looking to do that.
So me as well as also, well, it's been a old period, like maybe already almost 20 years ago, but also as a part of current administration. I mean, in Georgia, I know that it's rather complicated to transform the answer on my following question, but I'm really interested how it's going in US in this pandemic period. Unfortunately, I cannot call it post-pandemic yet because it's it's turmoiling and everything is still quite uncertain. But at the same time, there have been various steps taken in the fields of economic recovery plan, and President Biden team was quite active in these regards. How do you personally evaluate what's your story about the situation within the investment climate in US?
So here in the United States, I think the investment climate's pretty strong. I mean, I think you see strong growth and a lot of opportunity. I think that's only going to be heightened and accelerated through, the recovery plan put forth by President Biden. I really think that is a generational type of opportunity that's really going to help lay the foundation to continue U.S. competitiveness as we move forward in the years to come. A lot of that, so much of that pandemic response is focused on repairing assets and infrastructure that is needed here, but also investing in the industries of the future that you see coming down the pipeline. So electrification of the grid and the transportation industry.
The final support plan was dedicated to infrastructure projects. Am I right?
Primarily, so the first chunk of it, you know what I mean? I think we still have some work to go, and I think President Biden's right to continue to push on the next phase of that. But yeah, the first piece has been very much focused on infrastructure and assets here in the United States. Correct.
Matt, how ongoing pandemic turmoil reflects on U.S. external policy and at the same time supporting their strategic allies?
So let me first say, I think the United States, and in particular, I think President Biden has made it clear that we as a whole recognize that the pandemic is a global problem, and that until the world and the entire world is vaccinated, there's risks to the U.S. economy and U.S. citizens. And I think that's why the U.S. has taken a leadership position in vaccine diplomacy, the COVAX program with the UN, those sorts of things. The U.S. wants to be part of the solution for the world and is leading the way.
Okay. Matt, let's move back to Georgia at the same time. How well do you know our country, especially our region, I mean, South Caucasus, and just tell us a story how you first time get engaged with Georgia. How was your intro to Georgia? How and with whom it has happened?
Yeah, so I'd say I've always been intrigued by sort of the South Caucasus region and what the opportunities there could be. I have some personal friends here in the United States that are from Georgia that have always piqued my interest. I had, so I'll say I'm familiar with it and wanted to become more familiar. My first opportunity to visit Georgia happened earlier this year. Batumi for the opening of a new fertilizer terminal that was a joint venture between a great American company, Tremo, and a great Georgian company, Wonderland, to really help bring fertilizer from the region and access to the developed markets around the world. In that case, particularly the EU. And I think look forward to continuing to get engaged.
Okay, very good. And how do you see the role and perspectives? How well do you know Georgia in this regards? At the same time, while pointing Tramo and Wondernet, local Georgian one, which is, I agree, fully doing great job here in this country. At the same time, how do you see perspectives of our country within the region? And at the same time, I'm very much interested, while you are following, as mentioned, South Caucasus things, how do you see the role of Georgia after these things has happened in our region last October, November? I mean, Karabakh War and etc.
Yeah, well, so I guess my view is that Georgia has a unique position and a unique role to play if Georgia wants to, as a neighbor to sort of the Karabakh War, those countries involved there, it has a unique understanding sort of the conflict. And I think Georgia, if it wants, could play, and if it's asked, could play sort of a mediator in that process. I think that it also highlights that Georgia, as you look for sort of where, sort of a base for private investment into the region, that Georgia has that unique place because it's in some ways, it's the most stable country in the region, and as a friend of the United States and as a close ally, from a private sector standpoint, offers that stability, that is needed to move forward and make sort of long-term investments.
Matt, taking into consideration your first engagement, Georgia's, I'm not talking about, the story of Tramo and Wondernet here. Which spheres or industries do you consider for Georgia as the most attractive for potential U.S. investment, taking into consideration that you pointed and highlight the potential of our country to become a really hub for the region, covering various directions?
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of opportunity in a lot of industries, but I think when you really focus on on what the near-term piece is there. I think, the great advantage Georgia has is sort of the access to the Black Sea. And so I think you see there's lots of opportunities around transportation and logistics and the infrastructure associated with that. I think there's also some opportunities around sort of, electricity and green energy. But these are big projects that require, big investments and, essentially long-term paybacks. And I think that's why, we need to look forward, and Georgia needs to find some solutions to bring that investment and, make those projects as the private sector is more and more involved, a little less risky, and find ways to partner not just with the private sector, but also utilize some of the tools and toolkits that, really governments, both, the United States and European governments and others can help provide.
Matt, DFC in Georgia, how realistic this plan is from your perspective?
So I think it's a realistic plan. I think the private sector needs, to really move forward. I think does need some, an institution like DFC to become more involved. And I think, as I said, Georgia's the right place for that office, as you think about the region, and the right place to cover it because of its stability. So I think, I think it's, a reasonable thing and something that is, an interesting idea to move forward with.
And at the same time, AGCFE, I think I'm right in spelling. I just learned about this organization just a few days ago. At the same time, very impressive board representatives on it, quite well known for Georgians as well here. Why and by whom was this organization formed? Because you're part of it as a board member, and if I can be helpful, how it can create some efficient role in the further aims, like pointing that America-Georgia Economic Cooperation Foundation is for and to facilitate execution of FTA between USA and Georgia, and what we just pointed, establishment of DFC office in Georgia covering whole region. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, so thank you. So first off, I think, a few individuals in Georgia established the NGO to facilitate, greater collaboration between the U.S. and Georgian private sectors. And, I think that, that allows for successful integration of Georgia and the region into the global economy. Also to bring higher labor rights and protection standards and high ESG standards to the economy. I think, together we'll also bring innovations and modern technologies, and also, together with that, a high rate of human capital development. That should result then in the creation of a strong middle class, and we'll also, I think, to accomplish all of that, need the rule of law and the consolidation of democracy to move forward. So I think, to me, there's some explicit purposes, but there's a broader context of economic cooperation and goals that will have lasting benefits to the Georgian economy and to the Georgian people.
At the same time, while pointing the potential having DFC in Georgia covering the whole region, I really want to have additional explanations personally from you about the potentials and realistic having FTA between USA and Georgia, please.
So listen, I think that's a real possibility. I think as we discussed a little bit earlier, the region is, in flux a bit, and but my belief on all of this is, an FTA would be very beneficial to the region and to Georgia. And that nothing difficult happens without, trying. And I'm, a firm believer that, to accomplish anything great and anything significant, it takes a lot of effort and and it's better to try and fail than to never try at all. And I think that, this is an opportunity, spearheaded by Mamuka Bakeze, that I think really everyone in Georgia and the region should sort of help get behind, because I think it has the ability to create, a lasting benefit to the country and to the region.
Matt, thank you so much. My final question is, due to the good contacts introduced me to yourself, and thank you again so much for this interview. All the local community and our business society will be much interested about your surname, Kennedy, that you are representing this famous family. So I do have understanding with whom I am talking to right now, but please brief us about your family and your personal engagement with this name and with this family, please.
Well, so thank you. Yeah, no, I appreciate that, and thanks for the kind words. I'm very proud of what my grandfather and great uncle and so many members of my family have been able to accomplish. So for my grandfather is Robert Kennedy, who served as Attorney General in the United States. My father was in Congress. My twin brother that was served in Congress, and lots of other members of my family. And I think it's a great honor, and I think that helps me at least always want to find find areas where we can make a difference. And that even if you're in the private sector, what you do day to day should be about not only private sector and corporations and businesses need to make money, but also really being thoughtful about how those businesses impact the broader community and can make a positive difference. And so I think as we look for partnerships overseas and partners like that, we strive to ensure, and I strive to ensure that those live up to those ideals. That there's going to be good partners that treat their workers well, that want to have positive impacts in their communities and locally, and those sorts of things.
I hope to see you in Tbilisi quite soon. At the same time, you are still in the private sector so far, after you held so much senior positions. And I want just to update our viewers and followers that Matt Kennedy he has just mentioned only about Department of Commerce, but he was a part of White House administration. He was also a part of Department of Treasury. Very close engagement with OPIC and Export-Import Bank. So, Matt, proud of you, and great to have you on board. And thank you so much for this interview. Forbes really appreciates this.
Thank you very much for the time, and look forward to meeting in person on my next trip to Georgia. So appreciate it. Thank you.
Oh, definitely. Thank you. Thank you.
Take care.
The Checkpoint is presented by GM Pharma, the first international multinational pharmaceutical company in Georgia. GM Pharma, to serve those who need it most.